Hello and welcome to Simblified, a show that is to Indian podcasting what Amazon is to e-commerce. A large lumbering giant that puts the customer at the heart of everything it does and has returned massive shareholder value. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong document, guys. Just 1 second. Okay. We are like Amazon. We hate PPTs and are still largely unprofitable in our first decade. Also, it was started by a guy who ended up going bald. This show is also like Flipkart, once a radical wild idea whose two maverick co-founders did whatever the hell they wanted before being acquired by a large conglomerate, that's IBM and Walmart, respectively, who at the time thought it would be a great idea, but subsequently have mostly put their head in their hands and wondered why they did this in the first place. This show is like Snapdeal. Okay, sorry, we have no info about them in order to make a suitable joke. This show is like Cred. Nobody, including the hosts, have any idea what this show is about. We use surreal humor and dated references to distract people from that fact, and for some reason, they just tend to stick around. And let me point out that before there was Indiranagar Ko Gunda, there was Malad Ka Don. Hello, Naren.
Wow.
There is Vadala Ka Lala. Say hey, Tony.
Hi.
And missing in action today, well, we can't attach a place to him. He's left Malaysia. He's formerly Malad, now in Bangalore, soon to be in Canada. So let's give him his moniker based on his original home, Wikipedia ka bhaiya Shriked. He is not around for this recording. And I, of course, am just Chuck. Hello, guys. What's happening?
Hi.
Hi. So I just missed a lot of that conversation because I was having issues with my internet. So I'm assuming Chuck has said very nice things about me. So thank you very much, Chuck.
Yeah. Let's assume. let's
I used to
go
know
with
one
that.
guy, one of the workers in our factory. He used to wear a T-shirt to work. So he obviously doesn't understand what it said. And it said, I'm smiling because I don't know what the F is going on. So that's why I'm smiling.
Just like Cred, actually, if you think about it.
How many potential sponsors did you just knock out of the window with that intro check? One entire category we wiped out, which it seems is what the government also wants to do.
Oh, wow, subtle. Very nicely done. Okay, guys, what's the first thing that you ever bought online that you can remember? I have a feeling we asked this question before during one of these, but it's okay. We'll rewind anyway. Mine was a pirated Office 2000 CD. I still remember. I bought it for some $300 from eBay.
Oh, okay.
Back in 2001 or 2002. Yeah, that was fun. It was actually, it was out and out pirated. There was absolutely no doubt that it was pirated. It was put up online and a seller from Bangalore shipped it to me, my home in Kochi. Those are the good old days.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it's the first thing I bought. I must have bought a book or something. Odd thing that I remember buying was a hard drive. One of those Seagate things. And I bought it from eBay for some mysterious reason. And it didn't work. And then I spent a lot of time trying to get an exchange. Didn't happen. Yeah, so hard landing was there.
Hard disk landing, rather.
Hard disk landing, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I probably bought a book at some point, but I don't remember. But the first one was like, there was some digital camera that I bought on Flipkart and ordered it to Kochi. And I got a very amusing call from the courier guy at home saying, "Sir, when are you coming to collect your parcel?" I said, "What?"
Oh, man.
Yeah, e-commerce has come a long way.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an e-commerce problem as much as a Kerala problem.
Yeah. No, but Kerala has improved also. So,
Kerala has also improved. Yes, drastically. We are now, capitalism is thriving in our little hometown that say things like come and pick up. So, gentlemen, today I wanted to talk to you about new initiative by the government of India called the ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. Have you heard of the ONDC before?
I've heard about it actually. I've heard about it.
Don't ask me to elaborate.
I know ONDC is open. It's open. It's networked. It is digital and it is commerce. Yeah. Back when we were doing MBA, there was something called class participation. Again, extra marks for class participation. So there'll be a subset of people who have absolutely no clue what is happening. They would be the guys who are smiling. And every now and then, they would be told that they had to up their class participation. So there was one champ who would take whatever the teacher said and just repeat everything. So the teacher would say something and I just repeat it. So I did a little bit like that. So class participation. I repeated what Chuck had said about going.
Yeah. And the poor teacher might have been like, why the hell did I sign up for this? So class participation is usually abbreviated to CP, which of course is Delhi for cannot place. And the teacher at that very moment will be like, I'm cannot able to place.
Oh my God.
It took a very long walk to get there. But anyway, let's get back to ONDC. Boys, so that's the Open Network for Digital Commerce. And the pitch that is made is that ONDC can do for digital shopping what UPI did for digital payments. And before we dive a little deeper into what has happened, and most of the activity has happened this year, is still very, very much early days for ONDC. It's not, I don't think it's even live here in Mumbai yet. We will talk about possible pros and roadblocks that ONDC might have, but I just want to actually doff my hat off to the success of UPI so much. I mean, it's going abroad as well, and it genuinely seems like a revolutionary product. It's not exactly a product, sort of like an idea by itself. So I guess that's the one really good thing that has come out of country product-wise over the last few years. So the analogy works to an extent where it explains what ONDC is trying to do, but obviously it runs a lot deeper than that. Most listeners over here would know how to use UPI. Like, you don't need to be attached to a particular payment app or anything like that. I can use Google Pay to transfer money to you, and you might just be using your just HDFC as long as you have UPI address attached to that. So that way I find UPI actually a lot closer to email in some sense rather than anything else. ONDC kind of like wants to do that, but where any buyer can connect with any seller. Again, theoretically, everything sounds nice on paper. The idea being that currently there is a lot of concentration of monopolies in a lot of online commerce, be it Amazon and Flipkart cornering marketplace and e-commerce in that sense, and Zomato, Swiggy cornering food delivery, and similarly possibly in other spaces as well. ONDC kind of like wants to give more choices, meaning more power for customers who can now go online and say, okay, I want to buy a mobile phone. Now they're not just restricted to Amazon and Flipkart. They might also have a neighborhood store, for instance, that's selling it at cheaper price or might be getting quicker delivery, so on and so forth. You can compare prices. You can even choose your delivery partners as well. It's piloted in a few cities. It will be launched in Delhi and Mumbai after that. They wanted to complete 100 cities by August, but obviously nowhere close to that. Nandan sir, who spearheaded many other initiatives of which we have spoken about many times on the show before, is the mastermind behind this as well. By the way, the Competition Commission of India raided the offices of the top sellers on Amazon and Flipkart on April 20th, a day before ONDC was launched. Read into that what you will. This is the basics of what ONDC is. ONDC is not an app. It's not a platform. It's sort of like a set of standards. It's a network. It is actually a network. I know it sounds kind of faffy to say, but I'm going to say it's actually more like a set of standards. What HTTP was to the internet, TCP/IP was to the internet. And for people who don't understand those, it's kind of difficult to like parse what that could be, but these are the kind of technologies that really make it possible for one network of computers to communicate with another network of computers quite easily, leading to the internet. So the ONDC aims to do just that. So let's assume that, say, Naren wants to start an ice cream shop tomorrow. Like, just use a hypothetical example. And there are a couple of things that Naren can do. Naren can set up just a shop of his own and hope the catchment area that he has in Malad will be enough to fuel his demand. But then he wants to take it to something that's slightly bigger. He wants to go online and start selling his stuff online because there's a larger market out there. He can ship to other cities, etc., etc. So there are a couple of things that Naren can do right now. Naren can set up a website of his own using a platform like Shopify, or maybe Indian versions like Dukaan, etc., etc. Or he can list on a marketplace like Amazon, Flipkart, so on and so forth. Now, the advantage of listing on an Amazon or Flipkart is, of course, that there is going to be a lot of people searching for ice cream over there, and he will, or say Swiggy, Zomato as well. And so he can hopefully get some of the traffic, but he will have to give up a good part of his earnings in the form of commissions and stuff like that. Plus, there's so much other competition over there as well. On his own website, the advantage is that Naren gets to keep all of the money that he makes. And of course, he is able to give experience that he likes to the customer rather than what Amazon is forcing. But the problem is Naren has to drive traffic towards his site, which means that there's going to be branding, marketing, advertising, etc., that's being done. So some expenses are going to happen there in any case. Theoretically, Naren would benefit from plugging his website into the ONDC network, which means that any person searching on any e-commerce app that is also plugged into the ONDC network, when they search for ice cream, Naren's shop in Malad will pop up and that buyer can order stuff from Naren's store. So without doing too much marketing, branding, etc., Naren has access to pretty wide audience. So very, very simplified theoretical example of what ONDC can be. Small sellers like Naren's ice cream shop, the big advantage is access to a wide pool of buyers. So really, when you say network, it really is a net aggregate of buyers rather than sellers. These sellers could then be plugged into, this entire network can be plugged into a whole bunch of small stores like Naren's, even giant e-commerce stores like Amazon, if they choose to get onto the network. And interestingly enough, even other players like banks and telecoms planning to plug ONDC into their apps. Sort of like, I guess, for an HDFC, it kind of makes sense. Like, we want to offer you a shopping experience on the app as well. So yeah, this is very, very broadly what ONDC is about. Now I will take questions.
But the basic motivation on the part of the government is to sort of disrupt these big players, right? And say, like, you're basically screwing vendors over in two ways. One is that a small shop is, cannot list itself profitably on an Amazon or a Flipkart. Or if you're a restaurant, Swiggy and Zomato is taking way too much off your lunch. Yeah, so basically, as a small store, you can't basically list profitably, and the commissions taken by these guys are huge, and they will continue to dictate that. Right now, add on Amazon's layer of advertising that comes in to say, you're listing your product on the marketplace, but how do you get higher visibility? Why don't you pay us marketing fees and we'll put you up front? Right? So the motivation in that sense has come the reverse way around. Like you mentioned, the competition commission and all that, to say common man should not suffer. Therefore, let's break up big tech. Right? So, yeah.
Oh, no, you're right. So it's actually kind of interesting. There are so many questions that have come up more than answers or plans that I've seen.
Yeah.
At least from the government side and the people who are behind ONDC, it definitely seems like this is the narrative that they are kind of saying everywhere. Like every demo that I've seen, every video that I've seen, every write-up that I've seen, every interview that I've seen of ONDC officials is mostly towing this line, right? India is digital is growing, but it's still being cornered by a few players. We want to give everybody from the Kirana stores to whoever else it is, we want them to be represented digitally as well. ONDC is a way to do that. You don't need to worry about marketing, yada, yada, yada. So, and of course, then the parallel is drawn with UPI. And I'm guessing because of the success of that, they're hoping the same thing will be replicated over here. So in terms of motivation, in terms of signaling, that definitely, what you said, Tony, is definitely sort of like the narrative that is at play from the government's point of view. Now, whether it pans out that way or not, we can start poking holes, and I'm sure both of you would have probably thought of a few of them already. It's yet to see how it's going to play out, because it seems fairly polarized. I'll be honest, I have no idea how this is going to go. I might be a critic of this government, but I genuinely can't say right now whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. YouTube comments and analysis both seem very divided as to whether this is going to be success or not, and indeed to achieve the goals that you just spoke about right now. There might be better ways to achieve what you said. And let's face it, we know this from tech history. The moment barriers are lowered, it just means that a lot more players are going to come on to the platform. Now, what do you do in a situation like that when Kirana stores have to compete with each other. Does this now mean that they will have to advertise, which kind of brings us back to what Amazon is doing right now in some way, right? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be challenging to figure. It's going to be like very interesting to see how this entire thing plays out. There might even be specific business models that are made for people on ONDC. But yeah, let's see how it plays out, I guess.
Some observations, right? So number one is this is one of those two-sided markets. So two-sided markets are where, for example, a mall, right? A shopping mall won't get footfalls if there aren't many stores, right? But many stores won't sign up for that mall unless there are footfalls, right? So in the case of a mall, what happens is the shops, whoever setting up a shop, take a gamble. They look at the location, they look at the catchment area, and they guess that, they're going to get footfalls, which are, sort of make sense for them. And then they set up a shop. And because those shops are there, people who want to shop there go there, and then it works out. And some malls which don't get it right spectacularly bomb. And this is true about other businesses as well. Now, in the case of this, I can pretty much get, so people have to make their own websites and then come and pitch their tent on this field. So that's how it's going to go. One good development is that making your own website has become easier now. Here I'll plug a company run by a friend of mine. It's called Rebel Corp. So it's a make your own website, templated kind of thing. You sort of drag and drop whatever features you want. And it's very cheap. It's less than 1,000. It starts at less than 1,000 rupees a month. And all the editing you can do. So if you're selling t-shirts, and your colors have changed, and it's this season, and you can change all the images yourself. Or if you want to pack in some deals or pack in some different features, you can do that. If you want to sell some women's clothes instead of the t-shirts, you can do that. All that is doable by you. You don't need a web programmer or someone who knows the HTML or whatever. So this kind of functionality, and I believe it's this is the way the world is moving. So that kind of functionality, conceivably anyone with a smartphone, because people make TikTok videos, Instagram reels, they figured out how to edit. Things become easier. If people can make websites really easily, then this thing might just work. Because I'm sitting in Malad, I want to buy, let's say, a pair of shoelaces. My shoelaces are broken. So where might I get shoelaces? I can order it on Amazon, but it'll come tomorrow and I don't know. And if there's a shop nearby. Now the question is, what search engine will you use, and will that search engine take a cut?
Yeah, no, but even before that, right? Like just putting on the marketing hat and trying to understand what are the layers to this, right? First of all, why are they pitching it as an equivalent of UPI when I don't think it has anything to do with UPI, right? It's basically because UPI is a success story and they just want to, ride on the coattails.
I think it's more because it's an open platform sort of thing and it's not tied to one particular brand. I think that's sort of...
Yeah, but the problem here is very different.
The problem is different. The problem is 100% different.
One of the use cases you can say is that price comparison, right? And then you draw a parallel to something like, why does a Clear Trip or a Make My Trip exist? And then basically say that instead of searching for multiple different flights on different platforms, I am given a easy way into it and I can see, which is the cheapest flight and possibly book it, right? And like what is powering your sort of experience here is the fact that Clear Trip or Make My Trip has made significant investment into their platform, right? One, it is much easier to use than any sort of airline's website for that matter. And two, they consistently improve the product to make sure that people are coming back, right? And despite the fact that prices are sometimes similar, you might just continue in that flow because it's just easier to do that, right? Unless you're a deal hunter. So the primary difference here is going to be that if the ONDC is supposed to be doing this, it has to have a superior user experience than, let's say, Flipkart or an Amazon, right? Which is a tall order. Right. My immediate parallel is going to a super app that was launched, which was a collection of different apps or websites, earlier, yeah, which I shall not name, but you will end up in the same situation where, the user experience is not going to be great, right? And the problem you're trying to solve will be solved only if like the big players actually sign up for it. So it is going to take a long sort of route to make it successful, as opposed to the UPI where anyone could sort of leverage it and make it useful.
Clarify both the questions that you had. So there is no ONDC interface by itself, right? There is no app, there is no platform, there is no website which is an ONDC shopping website by itself. It is similar to UPI in the sense that players can choose to adopt it, which is why I use the example of a small seller like Naren's ice cream shop can plug into the ONDC network. And what that essentially means is that if I use an ONDC, another app, a buyer side app, for example, Paytm Mall, which is one of the only apps that has ONDC plugged into it at the moment. Talks around with a bunch of others, but for now, Paytm Mall. And I am sitting here and I search for ice cream and Naren's shop pops up over there, right? And then I order from his shop directly. I don't go to Naren's website, but I do have access to Naren's, I want to say, inventory, which he has put into the ONDC network, which I get, right? So the search engine, Naren, which you were asking, is really whichever search engine the buyer is using. For me, it might be Paytm Mall. Tomorrow, if Amazon decides to plug into the ONDC network, then Amazon becomes that. HDFC and Airtel, for example, are also in talks to see how they can plug in to the ONDC network. So tomorrow that might be a thing. Google is also in talks. So now that could either be their website itself, or that is most likely, I guess, going to be an integration into Google Pay. So you can imagine on GPay, along with Pay, there could be another thing called Shop on, and they can call it whatever they want. They don't need to call it ONDC. They can just say Google Shop or Google Mall or whatever it is, right? So that becomes a search engine. So in some sense, ONDC, it's not the onus of ONDC to build a network. It really is all the partner apps that are going to be plugging in that kind of, again, this is all completely theoretical, that aggregate their complete audiences and then price discovery, etc. is led to. So I hope that answers the question on where do people search for. There might be ONDC specific apps that come up in the future, but again, we don't know what's going to happen. So the superior interface, or so a superior experience rather, is what's going to determine this. Now, much of this experience as such is not in ONDC's hands because it's in the hands of Paytm Mall or whoever the case may be. But the experience that these guys will have to provide is, say, timely deliveries or whatever the case may be, the non-interface experience, right? Like already in the few pilots that have happened till now, there have already been a lot of bugs, the wrong product being sent, or a store being marked as 5 kilometers away when it was indeed 15 kilometers away. So all kinds of issues have come up already, apart from the fact that there are only very few options available on ONDC right now. So I guess assuming some of these will get solved with time, and it eventually becomes as seamless as, say, UPI is right now. I'm sure UPI had a few falters early days as well. So
yeah, but I mean, UPI was a sort of new, like UPI is in some senses, maybe the analogy doesn't work, but it was like it did what Zerodha did for investors, as opposed to it being like behind, the bank's DMAT platform and all, which is very difficult to use, right? What Zerodha did was it makes it much easier for you to understand things, and like anyone can use it, right? And UPI did the same thing where you don't need like a full scale.
There was a very clear user proposition. I think what you're kind of saying, at least from a user perspective, like again, I'm taking privileged people like us who use Amazon on a fairly regular basis, is that there is not much marginal utility in using something like this. And we might not even know that we are using it. If we go to, say, suppose Paytm Mall tomorrow, I'm not sure if any of us use Paytm Mall really, but if we were using it and they decided to plug into the ONDC network tomorrow, we wouldn't necessarily notice a difference apart from the fact that there might be, this is ONDC fulfilled or something like that. So it doesn't seem to me to be solving that huge a need for people. Also, because the whole network is fairly new, the concept is fairly new. So I'm not sure whether people are going to be very comfortable ordering very high value products off the app right away. I'm guessing is mostly a Kirana store and that sort of thing. And at least from my perspective, for me, that is not so much a problem because one, if I need something super immediately, I can just call the Kirana store and they'll happily bring it to me. Or two, if I'm willing to wait for an hour's time, now you have Instamart, at least in the biggest cities, and pretty much a lot of these hyper-local things. And I really don't care where it's coming from. I, again, might be completely wrong. There could be use cases, and in the promotional material, these guys have said that idea is to take this to smaller towns, etc. But I don't see how the existing players won't be able to do a better job of it, which brings me to a point that you mentioned, Tony, which I think is a super important one. The capability of an Amazon or a Swiggy or whoever it is to invest in better technology, better interfaces, etc., or even better price discovery for that matter, is far superior to what ONDC might ever have. ONDC is currently a non-profit, so they'll definitely not have the resources that these guys do. And it's also worth remembering that Amazon is also very largely a price discovery platform, even for a particular product. Suppose you are going to buy a hard disk on Amazon today, Naren. You might see only one price, but on the side, you will see that there are 3-4 other options, one of which might actually be slightly cheaper, but might be delivered to you a couple of days later. So at least in India, Amazon operates as a marketplace. So yes, it does take 70% of your money, but that doesn't mean all 70% is going to one company. It is, in many ways, when I was looking at the benefits of ONDC, it kind of seemed to me like, hey, isn't this what Amazon kind of offers? Any seller can come onto it anyway. Yeah. The point of differentiation could be lower commissions. Amazon, Swiggy, etc., they take fairly large commissions. Now, depending on who you ask, that could be anywhere from 20% to 40%. In Amazon's case, that could be even more when you're bundling in all the fulfilled by Amazon, etc., etc. But the point being, is commissions really the only thing then that is preventing sellers from getting onto Amazon? I'm not completely convinced about that. So to be very honest, I see the promise, but I remain a little bit skeptical about ONDC want to do. And another thing that I'm skeptical about is my ability to keep on talking for a while without taking a break. And I think we should do that at this point of time. Whew, Welcome back. Your podcast's delivery status is now being fulfilled.
Yeah, so during the break, I quickly opened up the Wikipedia page for ONDC, right? And I looked at the objectives, and the very first one that is stated is ending monopolies of the platforms, right? So, which is why I'm saying that it comes from a different approach.
Okay, fair. So in the US, they have Lina Khan trying to do her thing and break up these companies. In India, we have an elegant solution where we've made a 4-letter acronym out of it. Interesting. But
you know what will happen, right? This is basically all priming up for WhatsApp for Business to become very successful if they can tap into the ONDC network.
But tell me one thing. Do you think that monopolies, at least these two, I mean, it's a different thing from Standard Oil and all that, but in e-commerce especially, is monopoly that big a problem? Like, who is exactly suffering over here is something that I'm unable to put my finger on.
I'll tell you. So it's just an anecdote. Sure. I don't know. This is what someone told me, right? So there is one manufacturer of a certain kind of pillow. Okay, which is special. Yeah, he was selling it on Amazon. His numbers were small. Then people who needed that special kind of pillow, he got a lot of publicity, word of mouth kind of thing, and his sales went up. And Amazon, after some time, came up. So I have heard only one side of the story. So I have no idea if this is true or, if I'm wronging Amazon in this in any way. But what happened was Amazon put out its own product, which it called Basics by, and this guy's product was shown currently not available. And whether this is true or not, it is something that can happen.
It can happen and it has happened. In fact, Amazon makes a lot of money through its private label, Solimor, whatever it is. And for many products where you really don't care about the brand, like things like batteries, pillows, or whatever the case may be, you probably want to go for the cheapest option, or at least the one that has the best balance between price and views. And Amazon can very much push its own rating, push its own product. And of course, it has data from all these guys who have done the hard work of manufacturing, research, etc., etc. So this is not an isolated incident in what is it, Naren? This is something that sellers across the world have constantly had a problem with, and there have been plenty of research, etc., research investigation, etc., that has shown this to be true as well. In that sense, yes.
But this is an offline problem as well, right?
No, because it's a choice. Like, for example, there is a Kirana store near our house where we buy most of our stuff just because we know the guy. And, you go out and just the act of getting down from your house and going to the place and seeing a few familiar faces, the entire value of my Kirana purchase is probably of the order of a couple of ₹1,000. Extra 10% discount is not really going to shake the earth for me. Right. So,
yeah,
it's okay.
No, that's anecdotal, right? Basically, at the end of the day, when we're talking about India as a market, we're talking about a very price sensitive market, right? And basically, the point that I was making was malls will always offer the thing cheaper and they'll have similar things as store brands, right? If you go into one hypermarket to buy the same thing, you'll find Harpic with the exact same packaging, but of, that particular store, like Lulu hypermarket cleaner or whatever, which will be about 40 rupees cheaper, and automatically you'll buy. So I'm just saying that there is a parallel in the offline world as well.
That way, yes.
This is a larger problem than just online commerce. Maybe it's more egregious online.
It is much harder to pull off an offline because you need a much bigger physical presence. Geography does matter, right? Online, it doesn't. And these guys, they have another thing. They have access to the data of all the purchases, right? That only Amazon. Amazon doesn't share that, right? It knows exactly who's buying what. So that puts them in a position of very, very, very unfair competitive advantage. And this is the case with people like Swiggy and Zomato as well. And there's one difference between Swiggy, Zomato and Amazon. Food eating places, the price flexibility and, the kind of, market dynamics, because food is not as industrialized product. So it's artisanal to a great degree. I mean, there are some places like McDonald's or whatever, the chains, which can supply food at assembly line speeds. But most restaurants will have chefs who are actually cooking. So I'm told that Swiggy and Zomato often twist arms very badly in order to get their customer deals because they feel that their customers are looking for a deal. Most of the time, even the customers are not really interested. They're just hungry. They want to eat something. They're willing to spend a few ₹100 for a particular kind of meal. But Swiggy decides that no, we have to give them a 50% discount. But they are not giving the 50% discount. The eatery is. And basically it's the Godfather thing, right? Either your brains or your signature is going to be on that contract. I mean, what kind of a deal is that?
There are two parts to what you're saying, right? One is that Zomato and Swiggy are not necessarily looking at being profitable on a day-to-day basis or even in a yearly basis, right? They are happy taking up the losses as long as you get customers. Therefore, they'll pass on some of that loss making to the restaurants as well, purely because they have volume transactions. But for this ONDC to be successful, right, there is a very significant problem, which is that it's not just online, right? There are essentially three parts. Is the product of a high quality, right? Can you put it on a store? Then the place where you buy it itself, like the website or the platform or whatever. And most importantly, the logistics of how the damn thing reaches you, right? There are several times when the only reason Prime is one of the profitable products of Amazon is not necessarily because of the video, but people value that, it's coming in 2 days as opposed to 10 days or whatever, right? So it's not just going to be an online problem. It is going to be heavily offline. It's going to be logistics. It's going to be product quality control. It's going to be complaints, repairs.
100%. 100%. And I'll just add a little bit to what you said and the number of moving parts that ONDC will have to take care of over here. One is, of course, making sure that the network itself works as it's supposed to. Two, the fact that you are talking about stores that are both online and offline. Then you're dealing with process that is both online and offline. And people can also choose the partners. For example, I haven't seen this in action myself, so I don't know how to what extent this is, but suppose I buy something from, say, a restaurant that's 5 kilometers away, I can choose the delivery partner who I want to bring to me. Now that adds, again, another layer of complexity. Yeah. I don't know if it's auto-assigned or whatever the case may be. Then there are all the issues of, like you said, seller reputation or ranking and how to tackle complaints and things like that. In terms of reputation, ONDC has said that they are going to use something called a reputation index Which I guess, again, theoretically a nice idea, but then how are you going to monitor it? People have already pointed out that it's going to be very easy to game something like that by just creating bot farms to give this seller a high rating. A problem that even Amazon has not been able to crack, the problem of fake reviews, is something that even Amazon has not been able to solve completely around the world. So it's going to be very, very ambitious to expect that a non-profit sitting out of India will be able to solve that problem in a jiffy with all the other complexities that are hanging over it as well. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy task. Again, I'm hoping that this thing works purely because it's going to be like a, first time in the world something like this will ever happen. I'm sure interesting things will come out of it. That's always what I look for when things like this happen. But yeah, the sheer number of challenges is crazy. ONDC, for their part, remain insanely optimistic. You probably have to remain insanely optimistic. Like the CEO of ONDC, a guy called Koshi, Mallugai, I guess, he answered, the question was, what are the risks of ONDC not being able to scale up? And his answer was, and see if you can spot the optimism here. We don't see any reason why a consumer should not come onto the network. Today, just 6 to 7% of all consumers are e-shoppers. And for the seller fraternity, the penetration is less than 1%. The potential for e-commerce is huge. So if the consumer base goes up to 25% and seller penetration to 14 to 15%, those would be big numbers. Of course, it may take a couple of years for the hockey stick effect to kick in. We need both 5-star hotels and dhabas. Again, Tony, we know a certain parallel over here. Let both coexist for buyers. Innovation will drive the business. For instance, there could be startups which create apps for specialized cohorts of customers and deal with small numbers, maybe 2 million customers. Say it could be a group of Malayali customers with Malayali text and voice looking for some specific products. I have no idea why he bothered to plug that in over here. But again, crazy optimism. I hope this comes true. Like I said, I really hope that something comes out of this.
This is the point where you have to mandatorily plug PGK in the nut graph and India's California users, right? That the actual market for customers or online shoppers or anything is vastly overrated. Right?
India,
like the number
India.
of actual profitable online shoppers is very, very low. What he refers to as the California users, which is a very small number. It is not in the hundreds of crores that we're talking about, right? So, and there are like enough e-commerce platforms that have existed for us to know that this number is not going to go up significantly. So, I mean, it's all good to say if you change this Excel value from 2% to 25%, we'll see a huge improvement. But yeah, I mean, there are like way more challenges.
Another massive challenge which several people have actually pointed out is that a lot of the success of ONDC, if they are harping or if they're waiting for currently online stores to come online, that itself is a huge challenge, because not for the one-time setup or something like that. I'm sure the company that Naren referred to or others like Dukaan, etc., will be able to solve a one-time problem of taking this store online. It is the constant updating that becomes a huge hassle for many of these guys. Inventory management is actually one of the biggest problems, or rather inventory updating is one of the biggest problems. And a lot of orders in this pilot period have actually got cancelled because something was out of stock. This is a problem that's not going to be solved with spiffy interface or anything like that. At least not in a hurry. Catalog and inventory management is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's again going to be like a easier tech solve than other things, right? But the point about the California users, and when you refer to like we need 5-star hotels and dhabas, the difference is that if you're ordering something from a 5-star hotel, let's say the price of what you're ordering in is around 2,000 rupees. The delivery takes 100 rupees, right? So it's basically about 5% of the value or whatever, right? But if you are ordering from a dhaba and like the value of the order is 200 and the delivery is still going to be 100, which is like 50% of the whole damn thing, right? The economics changes very, very significantly. So unless and until there is a meaningful way for like logistics bundling or something else, you're not going to solve the fundamental problem just because a new network exists, right? So that's
absolutely.
Challenge.
And also it's a little unclear as to what happens when existing marketplace or a store plugs into the ONDC network. It theoretically means that if I search for something on Swiggy, it is also going to show me results from Zomato, or do I get to filter, or if I am an app, I get to filter only this. So If that's the case, if it's that open, then I don't see how it's going to fly with a lot of the big players. Ultimately, the answer, as it always does, boils down to, I know we are all dying to say this word, yes, it's branding. I feel that, I mean, let's face it, no, you're going to go to, I mean, people like us will always go to, say, a Zomato or an Amazon because we trust them, because we know that we are going to get decent prices from them, and so on and so forth. Or we will choose to buy from certain brands directly, or choose a certain brand on Amazon because we've heard of them, we trust them, etc., etc. I feel that that's going to become all the more important with any platform that aims to democratize. I think it will have a few unintended consequences that way. It'll just have an oversupply of things, and you're like, okay, listen, I just came for a packet of banana chips. Don't want 50 options. Okay, Haldiram's is a brand I identify. Okay, let's just go with that. Or I know this one particular chain of stores, so I will buy from there. I feel that's going to become another very interesting unintended consequence that could end up happening. This is from a very interesting analysis of ONDC that I saw from an Indian channel called Backstage with Millionaires. Have you guys heard of this YouTube channel? It's quite interesting. It started by one Indian guy and one Canadian guy.
Is it Backstage with Million Myers?
No, it's not.
No.
It's it started by one. So there are two hosts. One is an Indian guy and one is a Canadian guy. Interestingly enough, so it's kind of interesting to see like a white guy talk about Indian brands and all that. And this is actually a very well done video, and I'll link it in the notes of this episode. And he breaks this whole process down beautifully with the example of banana chips. Interestingly enough, and he says it could very likely happen that if an Amazon or Flipkart decided to plug into the ONDC network, there's very little upside for them really. Another smaller brand like Naren's ice cream store, you can argue that okay, you're getting access to a big network, etc., etc. What might end up happening, at least this video says could be a possibility, is that Amazon and Flipkart will have a free light version which is plugged into the ONDC network, and then this becomes, Tony, another offering for Prime. You have the curated options that are only verified, checked, etc., by Amazon that goes up on Prime. So over time, if more people start adopting this, and it's not unreasonable to think that others will do something like this, what will end up happening is that ONDC will get associated with, say, shoddy products or inferior, or at least things that are not verified, checked, etc., and that is a big problem right now. ONDC can't sit and manually verify each and every product that's going to be listed, especially if it's both online and offline. So you could have a premium tier, for example, that's offered. So that's one of the interesting outcomes of this entire thing that might come about. But as of now, I can't really think about anything else. I think it's an interesting experiment. It's still very, very early days. I don't see it here in Bombay. I tried it on all the apps. I even tried changing location to Bangalore. Still didn't find anything over there. Pretty sure it'll show up by end of year or so. But yeah, will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no, just to sort of go back to the PGK thing, right?
We always go back to PGK.
Pulled it up in the meanwhile. So I think it's very interesting analysis, right? So basically, all customer base of most Indian internet companies, the total is only 70 million, out of which 40 million like buys things once or twice a year. That's about it. And then there are occasional shoppers, which are roughly 20 million users, right? And they also shop online, but very, very sparingly. So everything that your Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, everyone chases is what is called India's California users, which is 10 million users. 10 million is 1 crore, right? Basically 1 crore users, right? And basically, why 10 crore? Zomato had reported an average monthly transacting user base of 10 million users. Monthly means once at least in a month. That's about it, right? So it's not like in that estimation going to go up to 25% of India's population or anything like that, right? Netflix is like 3 million paying subscribers in India, it seems. Amazon Prime is 6 to 7 million users. That's it. So the base in that sense is not that large, like in terms of...
No, absolutely. You're 100% right. I think UPI succeeded because it offered people, or how do I put it? Like, it didn't necessarily grow the pie of payments as such. I don't think people were paying more or spending more because UPI was an option. I think it just offered a more convenient way to pay. If the government is looking at ONDC as a way to explode e-commerce, then I think they have parallel falls short even more over here. So yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah. No, I think on this show we are never hesitant to come back and eat crow later and say we were wrong. But like quick jumping the gun reaction to this is that it's nothing like UPI, and I don't see how it's going to like scale just because platform is put in. It'll again depend on the biggies like your Amazon or Flipkart, or there it talks about Microsoft or Oracle or any of these guys coming and pitching their tent and saying, take our free marketplace. Or like, WhatsApp jumping into the picture and saying, hey, this is one piece of the puzzle that we needed. And therefore, like,
but the moment you have one big brand putting their foot in, things get skewed, right? It's no longer open. It will be skewed in one way or the other. This would be a completely different show if we were just talking about JioMart right now, which actually has the potential to, upend a lot of things with the WhatsApp integration and all that. But as far as ONDC goes, I remain skeptical, but would definitely want to see what happens over the next few months. And either way, here is wishing Nandan, Mr. Koshi and his team all the best to see what happens. Is that a decent place to end this on? A diplomatic-ish way to say that we have smartly thought this through, but please still don't come and break down our doors because we are rooting for you.
Our fulfillment mechanism is likely to be same as ONDC's fulfillment. We are fulfilled. I don't know if our listeners are, so.
So we will do an update episode on this maybe next year. Maybe we will be eating our humble pie, which will be ordered from ONDC. So, Naren?
Yeah. Logistics partner of your choice.
No, and also things change, right? So whatever numbers PGK came up with, they're not static. They keep changing. So yeah, who knows? They could grow by an order of magnitude.
Yeah, you never know. Something might end up changing. Another geo-like revolution. Who knows?
When launching these things, you have to be optimistic about it. So
yeah, in fact, they should replace the O. Should be optimistic. It should not be open. Optimistic
network
for developing commerce. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I think we have rambled on and on for long enough. Not bad for a day's Wikipedia research and 3 YouTube videos, all of which will be linked in the notes. So in case you're reading the description first, okay, you made it till the end, so never mind. Naren, you know what to do. Please end this delivery.
So, guys, stay safe, stay platformed, and stay simplified.
And please share your OTP.